This video is sponsored by Squarespace. From websites and online stores to marketing tools and analytics, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform to help realize your projects. Mercedes are the dominant force in Formula 1 today, and there seems to be no sign of them slowing down. Their effective leadership, innovative prowess, and driving lineup in Sir Lewis Hamilton and his slave has made the team into what it is today. Well, that and some work done by some Germans who came before, but putting that aside, the Mercedes team continues to set the standard. Although the question remains, when will they be dethroned? And by whom? It surely has to happen at some point, right? You have your usual candidates in Red Bull and Ferrari, although those guys have been thwarted by Harold Ramis, who had risen from the dead and is trying to make it as a team principal. But then you have to consider teams outside of these three candidates. Teams such as McLaren and Alpine have gained ground in recent years. Doralton's purchase of Williams could lead to a resurgence from that team in the years to come, and Haas, well, whatever they'll be come 2022, but that's a whole nother story. And then enters Aston Martin. And I know what you're thinking, then I can't possibly know that Aston Martin will even be successful. Well, yeah, that's why the title of this video is an open question. But getting back to the point at hand, Aston Martin will be returning to the sport after a 60-year hiatus, following Racing Point's rebranding at the conclusion of last season. Now, while this may seem like nothing more than a change of colour for the team along with a new driver, there is more to this effort than that. Considerable work behind the scenes, along with long-term prospects which are not total bullshit. But when you add all of it up, does any of it guarantee Aston Martin of a shot of challenging for titles in the coming years? Is the hype overblown, or can this team become a force to be reckoned with? Now, I mentioned before that Aston were returning to the sport after a hiatus of 60 years, and a lot of you are probably not aware of how they fared, or even that they were in the sport at all. Well, yeah, they did try their hand at Formula 1 before, but it kinda went really badly. They first entered the sport back in 1959 with the DBR4, and almost immediately, things were not going swimmingly. Because they had sort of put their DBR4 project to the side while they were focusing on building their Le Mans projects, this thing was outdated by the time it hit the grid in 1959. The team's two drivers were Roy Salvadori and Carroll Shelby, and despite both being fairly damn competent behind the wheel of a car, the Aston was almost never competitive with regards to pace. The best results the team could muster were two 6th place finishes from Salvadori. The first was at Aintree, which showed initial promise with some good qualifying performances, and Monsanto, where the pace went straight back to shithouse. Aston tried again for the 1960 season, but again, the car would not be competitive, and eventually, the company decided to abandon the sport altogether and focus on other areas. The potential for a return to the sport was raised several times since the turn of the 21st century. ProDrive boss David Richards flirted with the idea of bringing the name back to the sport, with potential entry points in 2008 and 2010, although acknowledging that doing so would require a thorough effort, and that going it alone would be an uphill battle. There's no point in creating a team just because you can. I mean, we had a few people who had that idea back in 2010, and all we got out of it were a few dead teams and a Peter Windsor with less hair. Aston Martin's return to the sport came as a sponsor for the Red Bull Racing team in 2016, eventually upgrading to the title sponsor role in 2018, so that the official name for 3 years was Aston Martin Red Bull Racing. With this partnership came the birth of the Valkyrie and some interesting race suits, although a proper return to the sport was just on the horizon. Only thing is, starting from 2018, almost no one saw it coming. And now is when we turn our attention to Force India, the Indian racing team run by Vijay Mallya, known as the King of Good Times, among other things. Now, this team was forever realized as a team that punched well above its weight. Results generally got better as the years drew on, but come 2018, the team's financial issues were evident, and by the time the Hungarian Grand Prix came about, the team was put into administration. A buyer was sought for the team, with 3 candidates throwing their hats into the ring. Bad Santa, who was never really considered a serious option, Dmitry Mazepin, who ended up owning his own team a couple years later anyway, and Lawrence Stroll, Canadian billionaire and father of the most polarizing driver on the Formula 1 grid today, Sir Lancelot. While Mazepin would claim to have had a legitimate offer on the table, a consortium led by Stroll would end up acquiring the team and all of its assets. The team name was changed to Racing racing point, saw a healthy injection of cash, a trip to the Mercedes design department armed with some tracing paper, and in just under 2 years, the team won its first Grand Prix at the hands of Checo Perez, who they subsequently would kick to the curb. So here we are in 2021, the team name has been changed to Aston Martin, and I am making a video on it, which, incidentally, was brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one platform to help you create your own beautiful website. Setting up a website for yourself or your business is pretty straightforward. You start off by selecting from an array of templates, which you can twist and bend to get the site to meet your aesthetic preferences. If you're a podcaster or a musician, you can use the audio blocks feature where you can embed your tracks into the site. Or if you're a business owner, Squarespace's online storefront can help get your e-commerce shop up in no time. The platform's ease of use is especially helpful to those of whom who are not totally savvy in the world of web design, so don't feel intimidated by using this thing. If you're keen to give it a try, you can do so for free at squarespace.com, and if you like the experience, head on over to squarespace.com/JOSHREVELL to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. If only Aston had that kind of discount on their merch store, maybe I would buy their stuff. I mean, 350 quid for a jacket? Lawrence, you got enough money already, bruh. But hey, when all is said and done, how does any of what happened make Aston Martin a viable contender for the future? Aside from the change of name and overpriced clothing, what else about the team can we talk about? Well, one place we can look is with the drivers. I guess we could start off with my personal favourite, eh? Lance Stroll is Aston's only carryover from last year in the driver lineup. So what can we expect Canada's finest to contribute toward these efforts? Well, on his day, Lance can be damn good behind the wheel of a car. He's pretty exceptional in the wet, and his overall pace has been getting better year by year. Granted, progress is slower than a hair grows on a caribou's scrotum, but it's still progress. I'm slating Lance for a Grand Prix win at some stage this year. However, in the grand scheme of things, if Aston Martin are going to muster a challenge to the likes of Mercedes and Red Bull and okay, just those two, they're going to need a driver that can help take them to that level. Someone who can perform week in and week out, rather than every 4 or 5 races. Now, Lawrence Stroll realized this. So when Ferrari dumped Sebastian Vettel at the beginning of 2020, this was a prime opportunity to pounce. It was a no-brainer to sign Vettel given that he's a driver who, when given the car, can challenge for Grand Prix wins and championship titles. His image has taken a knock in recent years with an unhealthy habit of sitting backwards in a cloud of his own smoke, but signing with Aston Martin provides him with an opportunity to be free of a Ferrari team with an antiquated approach to driver management and be within a team that doesn't necessarily cater to just one driver. Long-term prospects are more promising than most teams on the grid, and a rejuvenated Vettel could consequently work in favour for Sir Lancelot. Yeah, Sir Lancelot has been painfully inconsistent in his first 4 years in the game, but, and it's admittedly a big but, there is potential for Seb's arrival in the team to drag out the best in Lance. The kid has potential, and has shown that sporadically in the past, but it does need to be a more common thing. If that happens, you have an ideal driver lineup on your hands going forward, without need to change the driver lineup for years to come. But let's say they did want to change the driver lineup. Who would jump ship to that team? Well, as crazy as it may seem to some people, Sir Lewis Hamilton's 1-year contract with Mercedes has thrown up suggestions that he may not be entirely happy where he is right now, although he claims he still has a lot of racing left in him. If that is the case, if Hamilton is looking for better terms in his contract that Mercedes simply will not provide, Lawrence Stroll isn't exactly short of cash. Although highly unlikely, it's not an impossibility for those circumstances to take place. So who would they kick to the curb? Well, Lance kind of has job security, but imagine if they did a Hamilton-Vettel driver lineup.
Oh my god.
You want to tell me you wouldn't like to see what that looked like? So we've talked about the driver lineup. Briefly. What else is there to talk about for the future of Aston in Formula 1? Well, obviously, we can talk about the team's finances and that this team needn't worry whether or not Lawrence Stroll can fork out the money to make things happen for the team. The team has already undertaken a variety of upgrades to its facilities, and come 2022 when the new regs are put in place, and when the cost cap will be enforced, the field will close up or at the very least provide a more level playing field. The team's historical resourcefulness, along with a blank check from Mr. Incredible over here, could put this team in a very handy position indeed. Of course, none of this is guaranteed, which is why some of you will be questioning why I even suggested that this team could become Formula 1's next dominant force. Well, let me put it to you this way. Remember that scene from Casino Royale where James Bond rolls his Aston Martin? Yeah, that's got nothing to do with this, but it's still a great scene. But getting back on point here, put simply, they have the resources in place to make this happen now. They're quickly putting together a team that can muster a challenge. It's in the best interest of Lawrence Stroll that this venture is successful, as it will in turn be more profitable for the automotive brand, which he also owns. Not much was broke with the team that came before, which is why Stroll is leaving most of everything as it is. Difference between then and now is that any gaps with regards to financing or resources is now filled. Something also worth pointing out is that while championships look unlikely at this stage, there was a time when Mercedes wasn't winning stuff. Well, apart from the occasional race, but they were not the dominant force that we know today. But let me put it to you this way. When Hamilton signed for Mercedes at the back end of 2012, how many of you actually thought that he would go on to win 6 more titles for the team? I know I didn't, but that's because my predictions age like milk in the Atacama. Or James Bond's Aston Martin. And yet, here we are today. Mercedes have set the standard, and Hamilton is the top dog in the yard. Aston could very well follow the same path, although we cannot expect these guys to start winning championships straight out of the gate. They could come to the forefront with the new regulations, or it can happen 5 years down the road. Either way, this is a long-term deal, which begs the question, how will Aston Martin fare in the years to come? I don't know. Can they win a championship in the future? Quite possibly. Should you like this video and subscribe to the channel? I mean, if you wanna. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Drop a comment below to help me keep in the algorithm's good books. Subscribe to the channel if you're awesome, and always remember, keep it respectful, be wholesome, don't be a marnus, and as always, I'll see you all later.